Welcome to another Coffee with Samso. And today we've got Venture Minerals Limited here with us. ASX code is VMS. Andrew Radonjic is the Managing Director, and market cap currently at 31 million, and the share price is at 1.7 as we speak today. A diversified mineral explorer, as we know. Venture has recently announced a rare earth in Western Australia. The rare earth story is not something new for Venture, as they've talked about rare earth in the Mount Lindsay project in Tasmania. So this is a consolidation, I guess, of some sort for Venture. Andrew, welcome.
Good to be back.
Tell us about it.
Well, look, when we spoke, I think it was last time, about the Brothers and Bandy rare earth projects, and it's very much a continuation of that theme. And as you correctly pointed out, the rare earth, our move into our rare earths has been over a period of time, but it's been quite aggressive. So I think now we must have 7 or 8 projects, depending if you separate Iron Duke, which I kind of call part of the Brothers project to a large degree. And if your listeners / viewers have a look at that particular episode, you'll see the Brothers project, and you'll see 4 meters at 2,100 ppm, and we reference that as being proving the area was prospective. But we got attracted to the clay hosted rare earth because not only is it better for the magnetic rare earth elements, the big 4, which are obviously most valuable, higher percentage of rare earth, and easier processing. Obviously, we haven't done any met work or anything like that just yet. But we've got the clays at the Reward project at Mount Lindsay around the tin zones, which we found. We've been drilling the Cruncher target, and we've made that nice little discovery at Vulcan, that 12.5% total rare earth oxide rock chip, and we're preparing to get that drilled. So we're only 40 k's east of that project, and we've been instantly attracted by the CRC LME laterite results. We've got the highest one in our data set for the West Yilgarn, which is Bandy. And at Brothers, we got the 3rd highest, and the second one already been pegged by someone else. So I think we're developing a nice story. And, for us, we kind of went back and had a look at that data and saw it was actually 49 metres at 1,300, just over 1,300 ppm from 12 metres down to the bottom of the hole. And then 200 metres away is the second hole that the previous explorer had drilled, and again they got co-funding for this, and they got 49 metres, again from 12 down to 61, bottom of a hole, of 953 ppm, and that compares very well in terms of grade and thickness for a lot of the the rare earth players that are coming out to the market now. So it's, I suppose, Venture's been known to grab opportunities, being quick and nimble, but we've been attracted to the space. For clean energy, which is what Mount Lindsay's about, and I think the rare earth is a very good fit, along with the boron at Mount Lindsay. And for us, just a natural progression by grabbing this project. We approached the group. They were amenable to a deal, and the result of that is what we put out today.
I mean, those 2 drill holes that you talk about, the historical drill holes, and you mentioned bottom of the hole. Just a question. So they're mineralized to the bottom of the hole, so they stopped in mineralization? Is that what you imply?
Correct. Yeah. So we you can see there's some higher grade sections which we mentioned in the announcement, and also in the figure there, we've got figure 1 there. And you can see that there's some higher grade bits, but it's not. It's reasonably consistent throughout. So it's quite high, even in background sort of levels. So nothing. You can see edges into it, and then the 12-minute mark comes in, and there's clearly that sort of like a supergene type effect. We've got a bit higher grade around that sort of 30-metre mark, high 20s, and then it comes back down again. But Yeah, look, where there's not a drill hole for 30 or 40 kilometres, this is way open. Where the tenements are granted, there's a program of works in there, which means we can get in there drilling very, very soon. So the plan is to get there before the end of the month, hopefully a bit sooner with an air core rig, do a broad space pattern and see what scale this opportunity could be. So, yeah, pretty exciting, like I said, opportunity for shareholders. And we could have a rare earth, clay hosted rare earth discovery on our hands quite quickly.
I mean, when obviously, if anyone's been following our platform, we've talked to a few companies who are in this rare earth space, and I've been educated by that, but in the sense of how to look at these numbers and wonder, what's good and what's bad. Because I can see in your announcement, you did mention there's 20 meters at much higher grades, which is important. I used to tell people, rightly or wrongly, 20 meters with 1,000 to 2,000 ppms would be interesting. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of other parameters in play, but so when I look at 49 minutes at 1,300 and I see the higher grade sections, it kind of make me think, well, oh, geez, this is not bad. And I'm assuming those two holes are nearby. I can't tell with the scale of your plan, but I mean, 49 minutes is quite big for most stories we hear out there.
Yeah, that's correct, and that's what we liked about it. We sort of, if you pick the eyes out of it, you go, you got 8 meters at a couple of thousand ppm, which is okay. But you got strip ratios and those sort of things. So when you got talking about 49 meters, it's much better. And the two holes are 200 meters apart on that figure and in the announcement. You can't see it almost on top of each other at that scale, but it's it's still 200 meters apart. That's not bad continuity. I think our pattern will be broader than that. But yeah, look, it's elephant country, as they say. So
Yeah,
anything could happen out there. It's very exciting.
that kind of leads to the next question, I guess. Also, I mean, obviously, I look around the thing, and I don't think there's many other stories around you. Is that correct? I know the rest of it's in the wheat belt further south. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, I'm not. I'm seeing. I suppose people are testing some concepts and picking a few things up, and Codrus Minerals have got the Carloning project just at Mukabun, which is the northern part of the wheat belt, but I can't see much between that and sort of the Yalgoo sort of area. So yeah, it's relatively early days there, but and maybe we're leading the charge to a degree, and I think I see some people are reassessing their targeting in that area now. So yeah, look, it's pretty open out there. So
Okay. And I guess, for everyone's watching, there's a rare bandwagon that's moving along. Can you narrate to these guys, your shareholders and potential shareholders, that your story is different to, what we see and hear floating around now?
well, look, it's as always. You pointed out we're diversified, so for the shareholders, it's an opportunity for participating in another uh, decarbonisation element, like the boron, the tin, and so you can participate in that opportunity, and you can also be exposed to getting quite a large new discovery in what's certainly a very fast moving sector, and certainly we've most explorers have been looking for lithium or rare earths, and depending on the type of geology and what you've been picking up. In our case, if we found lithium, obviously would have told the market that, but we've had a look, and in our case we've just simply come across the rare earth, and I think it's a space that we'd like to be in. Obviously there's things like metallurgy is going to be pretty important. You need to get that next step, and you need to get that clear. You need to know the scale of the opportunity, the grade. Are there higher grade sections within? Or we're going to mine something quite, hundreds of millions of tons going, preferably above 1,000 ppm. If you can, that sort of scale, that's not too bad. And then the next question is, where's the source? Is there a source? Is there something at depth? at the end of the day, we simply do not know. And, places that were off the radar many years ago because it was granite or it was pegmatites out and people didn't know, and all those sort of things happen, and then people are now all of a sudden well positioned, finding things east of Norseman, Lavota, come up with some nice hits out there, and in areas that were outside the greenstone belts, called moose pasture for one reason or another, and all of a sudden you go back and you mine the data, and usually, like in our case, government data sets, or other explorers' data sets. Maybe they're looking for, and in the wheat belt, there's a good example of that, looking in, data sets for diamond exploration, which is you quite often got broad element suites, and you'll have your lanthanum and cerium often, and sometimes you have a bit more depending what sort of indicator mineral is looking for. But the idea was never to go and look for rare earths. The idea was to look for something else, and you just see elevated rare earths for some other reason, and that gives you attraction for diamonds or other commodities. And like I said, they're just indicator minerals, not necessarily standalone rare earth deposits in their own right. And I think everyone's been doing that, and all of a sudden the rare earths aren't as rare as one would have thought. And but it's all part of this geopolitical positioning, with China controlling this the rare earths sector, having supplied, and in South China have all these clay hosted rare earths. And now Australia has an opportunity to compete for that as a different jurisdiction for other countries to buy from, and obviously our friends at Lynas have led the charge there, and I know, and like yourself, Noel, it's sort of, that was around for a long time, that story, and then now look at it, it's a multi-billion-dollar company, so very successful, but it took Siemens to give them the money to go and build the assets, secure the offtake. Obviously, they went to Malaysia to go and build the plant, and the rest is history now. And they're making good money out of their clays components sitting above their carbonatite, which was the source in this particular case. So, people often go looking for carbonatites or even alkali-rich intrusions, which are known to contain these hard rock sources. But it's like this clay, call it gold, supergene type, analogy, the lower hanging fruit, which you can go and make the money to build your plant to go and maybe process the hard rock product later on down the track. So it's, the race is on, if you like, to get the best asset, and we provide shareholders a seat at the table there, and which looks like a pretty exciting ride, and I think hopefully will be similar to what the lithium players and explorers have been going through.
I think it's a point that, again, through the guys I've talked to, like OD6, they've done their met tests, and they're sort of saying that the weathered clays are much more leachable than the lesser weathered clays, and having a deep weathering profile maybe could be an indicator that you are exposed to more weathering. So there is those things that still unknown. It's just talk, I guess, as speculation, I guess, in from my point of view, that yet to be known, because a big deep intercept, nearly 50 meters, I think is interesting, significant. We don't know until you start doing more work, but definitely a step in the right direction. I guess the downside of being over diversified is that you've got a spread of projects, and investors and the like will say, well, are you stretching yourself too much? What's your return to that?
Well, I went to dinner last night with a group of like-minded sort of CEOs, MDs of companies, and not necessarily just spread on the resource sector. And we had a conversation about our joint venture partner, Chalice, before the Julimar discovery. And if you go and flick back to see what they were doing before that, they'd have a flagship project, and that'd be 80% of the focus. And you go look at their quarterly reports, and there's a good example of that now. Then you have the 20%, and you'll have maybe a paragraph in each. And certainly, we put more effort than that in there. But, Mount Lindsay is our flagship project. And we don't sort of demonstrate that sort of 80-20 split by the way the quarterlies are written. But Julimar used to be in the 20% group.
Yep.
Now, currently, our Tor or Southwest project is in the 20% group. So, as I jokingly said, I only need 10 metres of 10% nickel to maybe kick Julimar out and then put it back in the 20% group. But that's kind of one way of addressing the issue. That's a way, very, that successful explorer company, part of Tim Goyder's group of companies like Liontown, etc. And they sort of kind of operate with that sort of. And that's what people said. I didn't recognise that. I didn't know that. Sorry, but you can recognise it quite clearly. So, we're doing the share purchase plan at the moment. Bunch of air core holes at broad spacing ain't going to cost a lot of money to test this opportunity. And air core means we're not drilling into hard rock, we're bouncing off the hard rock. So it's going to be really reasonably quick and effective. And then you go, oh, do we do the next step? How do we rank that? Ranking is always very important in terms of prioritising where your dollar's going. This SPP, $3 million looking to raise as a minimum is sort of like going to get us. Most of that's going to be based on Mount Lindsay doing the tin boron test work, but we're always very nimble, Noel. And if we start getting some, big intersections at 3,000 ppm or something even better, then we may need to go and move. And if we've got a problem where all of a sudden, a good problem, we have, it looks like we've got a rare earth mine and we've got a tin tungsten mine, we've always been open to doing some sort of spin out if need be, so that, they get the due attention and focus in a different vehicle, which Venture may have, and its shareholders may have, good equity position exposure to. And, as we always say, it's a good problem to have. But I think for not a lot of dollars, we can probably get a good look on a bunch of rare earth assets. We've got a good collection of them already. And it might be, one hole at Vulcan. It might, which if it's reasonably deep hole, it's going to be expensive because it's deep. And then you can get a hole, 50 air core holes or whatever for the same price, and you'll cover a big area. And very quickly you'll know if those two holes in the middle of nowhere, they're significant, definitely, but is it just that localised area, or is it actually got some scale? Where are the best grades? We've got a long way to go. But that's the way Venture is. We've done this in the past before, and that's why, where if you look at, even Mount Lindsay's diversified as tin tungsten, but we're not like, if you look at pure tin explorers, the market caps are struggling compared to what we have, because again we have that option. And remember, we were a $200 million company at one stage because of the Chalice JV, the iron ore price, and the Mount Lindsay tin tungsten increasing tin price. So all of a sudden we're getting big intersections of, or rich zones of terbium, $300,000 a ton US. Then it's not going to take much of that to add some significant value to the business. So yeah, anyway, that's sort of, I found that Chalice story comforting, if nothing else.
Oh, I'm pretty sure if we think back, there's lots of 20% projects that became the main project. It's just too many to list. But what I have noticed, we're here at the REE conference in Sydney, and I did my runs this morning walking around, and what I did notice is that there's a lesser lithium experience. I mean, lithium is still the main player, main story, but there's a bigger rare earth presence, sort of taking some of the limelight away. And I think that maybe, I think a lot of people may think this is a short-lived thing. I personally think because of the geopolitical issue, like you mentioned, and if anyone sort of looked into the rare earth projects in China, they're actually very low grade, and the way they've been extracting is not the best practice. And I think eventually even them themselves would try and limit that to some degree. So I think this story has a lot of legs in time. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but in time. But anyway, so do you agree with that narrative in sense of what I've just described?
Yeah, look, Northern Minerals were talking about this before.
Yeah.
It's and maybe the time, like for lithium, the time wasn't right for them, and maybe it'll come in the future where the market will appreciate the scarcity of it, the geopolitical issues, the fact that you see these sort of one-man shows, or a handful of people are mining these things, and dams are leaking, and they don't rehabilitate it. And in the tungsten sector, they've closed down a fair bit of the smaller operators because of the pollution levels. So, yeah, does that happen with China? Don't know. It's obviously a different regime compared to regulation in Australia, but it's there's a possibility it may. At the end of the day, they don't want to be harming their environment, so eventually there'll be some control. And and if Australia's well positioned to be developing, a handful of these mines supplying the product the world needs, then yeah, it's a good result. And like I said before, it's about us being in the game, and Rare Earths has had little runs before. I think we heard about, probably, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. It had I think I don't know if it was generated out of Reddit. I think it might have been a few years ago, and then all of a sudden there was a scarcity, and tungsten got tied up into that as well, and that hasn't changed. China still controls those commodities, and the US and Europe require those products, but our regime for developing or permitting and all that, it is more challenging. It still allows us to mine, in much of Australia, and as a consequence, we can still supply the rest of the world with those products.
News flow. I mean, we talked a fair bit about things, but what's in front for investors or potential investors?
Well, look, we've got the drilling that will happen here at Rubbers, Bandy as well, Iron Duke. We look forward to drilling the Vulcan target at Golden Grove North as well. So there's a fair bit on the rare earth side of things. We've still got some results to come out of the Mount Lindsay drilling, which is you've got the nickel target, you've got the Renison mine sequence drilling, Cruncher, another rare earth target. So there's still drill results to come out of that, and of course, Chalice are planning to do some drilling on following up those 4 targets. It won't be because of the restrictions in the state forest about operating in winter or high rainfall seasons down in that southwest corner of WA. You'll probably see them drilling probably early Q4. Again, the programs haven't been determined just yet, but whether it's shallow, air core, or diamond, still to be determined. So that's a little bit further down the track, and of course, we will be spending time. Like I said, its focus is to get the test work on the borates to see if we can recover the concentrated boric acid out of the borates, a tin con and an iron con, like it's been done before in Russia and China, and start getting that test work underway and start giving shareholders a feel, or the market a feel, on the scale of this opportunity. And if the borates have a significant scale, and we spoke about, Mount Lindsay having 80,000 tonnes of tin, but opportunities for several more of those sort of scale, all of a sudden you're talking about 200, 300, almost maybe Renaissance size, not in one spot, but spread out. And if you can get access to all of those, and they've all got their little high-grade cassiterite core, and they've got their scheelite and their magnetite, Dan, we're talking about a different level project. We're talking about a world-class asset down there. So, we're heading towards trying to give, exploration targets or some sense of the scope of the opportunity there. So, lots of news flow, and like I said before, we've always got the option in the iron ore price. So, don't forget about that. But plenty of news flow, and the SPP will be the main focus will be the rare earth drilling and the the tin boron study work, which we want to get that moving in so we can finish that flow sheet, and then we'll get a much better idea of it, of a project which is going to be much bigger than we were really anticipating going underground on.
After all that, any last words that you haven't missed out?
Well, I'm putting $30,000 of my hard-earned money into the SPP, and put that in the announcement, and a fellow director likewise a similar amount. So, I believe in the story, and I think, like I said before, we've got many options, and at the booth today, people were coming and say, I like the boron, I like the rare earths, I like Chalice. That's still a joint venture, still hanging in there, and and they like Mount Lindsay. So it's there's a bit for everyone, and as we say, there's two companies for the price of one, but sometimes you could argue there's a lot more than that.
Yeah, I would say a lot more than that personally. But Andrew, look, it's a great update. I think it's I like what I saw. I think you have an interesting story developing, but again, it's all potentials, and we know what happened with potentials. So, but anyway, it's a great update. Thank you. And before we leave, you have the coffee. But since you're in our hand, we'll hand that to you when we finish. But coffee to go, and thank you. Hopefully we'll get more updates soon.
Excellent. All right, thanks again.